So this beautiful quote by, I think, Albert Camus said, autumn is like a second spring and all the leaves are flowers. Um, yeah, another thing that I learned in I think the book, The Reason for Flowers, that I looked at the other day was how in myth, turns out that flowers are often, there's stories about men who turn into flowers, like Narcissus, and women become useful trees. I was particularly thinking about the story of Adonis, who, so Mira, I think that's how it's pronounced. She was the daughter of a king and queen, and it was said that her mom bragged that she was more beautiful than Aphrodite. So Aphrodite heard that and was mad. So she had Mira fall in love with her father, and she went to her father and slept with him, something like that. And the father wanted to punish her, and she ran away. And then Aphrodite turned her into the myrrh tree, from which, that holy resin is made. And when the tree was like opened up or something, Adonis, a baby boy, came out, and that was Adonis. And Adonis was so beautiful that Aphrodite took him, and then she became his lover. And Persephone, the queen of the underworld, also desired him. So again, this theme of like kind of the incest, like in the realm of the gods, like it's totally cool. Like, it's Aphrodite's pretty much having sex with like her son, if you want to see it. Like, she reared this baby boy and it became Adonis. And, Zeus and Hera, I mean, they're brothers and sisters. And so it's interesting that, how that's become such a taboo, and that, the structure of family is really a cultural, overlay. It's not necessarily natural, but when we hear about, things happening between members of the same family, it feels, at least, to most modern ears, it sounds very unnatural and very disturbing. But in the animal world and in the realm of like ancient gods, that it was completely acceptable, and actually more natural to not deny that there would be, sexual energy between beings just like any other being. It's like this cultural thing we put on top of it that make us feel like there's something horribly wrong, or something to be ashamed of. And the other day I went to this talk by Caroline Casey. She's an astrologer who I'd heard about from a good friend of mine, and every time she said anything about her, I just loved the language and the energy, but I'd never actually like read her book or listened to her. It turns out she's local to here, and so I went to this talk, and it was amazing. Like, she's just such an eloquent speaker. She's funny, able to like bring together many different ideas, and I felt like I was falling in love with her as I was listening to her. But what I noticed is two things. One was that there was a part of me that felt like this familiar, like, I wouldn't call it jealousy, but like a putting down of myself. Like, oh, she talked for 2 hours, and I was thinking, oh, I'm not like that. I could never, captivate an audience like that. I'm not funny like that. I'm not this and that. And it's like, yeah, of course you're not, because you're not her, and you're not supposed to be, and she couldn't be like you. So interesting to catch that. And then the other piece was like that I felt like I noticed my mind trying to think of ways to connect with her. Like, I was thinking, oh, maybe I should buy a reading from her, even though I don't really need a reading. Of course, I would enjoy it, but it's not something that feels like a true thing that I want to spend money on. But I just found myself wanting to just like be with her and hang out with her and keep listening to her speak. And as I was driving home, I could see my mind working, like thinking, well, what reason would I have to talk to her unless I paid for her services? And if I was just like gonna call her, I mean, become friends with her, like what interest would she have in me? And just going. And then I was like, what is this coming from? And again, it was this, I noticed it's this hunger. It's like, instead of just saying, I had this really inspiring experience by listening to this great woman speak and just leaving it at that, it was like this automatic, like wanting to continue it or cultivate it or have more. And I think also this sense of, because it's, rare to have that kind of experience for me, where I feel really inspired by someone, that I have access to. There's a sense of like, this is no accident. Like I'm meant to continue to grow this relationship because it felt so good, But I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, I know so many times, like, yeah, you like someone's work or like their music, but meeting them and having a conversation is like a totally different thing. Just because someone inspires you with their work doesn't necessarily mean you're meant to like be friends or have like this deep relationship. And on my own part, on a more personal level, like I've had like sacred special experiences with people, and I know sometimes, yeah, how it feels when the other person attaches and assumes that it means like we're going to be really good friends or, lovers or something. And it's like, no, sometimes it's just complete as this really special evening or this moment. And so it made me notice how the way that I jump, to the future or to try to make something, give something more meaning and like not allowing it to be complete and just, enjoy the sweetness, the afterglow of just having had a really inspiring experience instead of focusing on how to repeat it or sustain it. So yeah, I made did a little art piece today, and it was the message from that my inner self or the higher self or the muse was to let the fruits within my being, let myself be nourished by those my own fruits, and let the juices, like the sweetness and richness of it, just like pour through me and overflow. Yeah. And this morning I had okay. So yesterday I was really, this is actually the most important thing. Yesterday I was really frustrated because same old thing, like just like confused about why after all this time I still don't seem to be able to speak about what my offering clearly, and that even when I do, people don't seem to be interested, but like I know the work is what I'm meant to do, so I was just frustrated about that. And then I was talking to someone, and it became clear that I'm still skirting around, like even with this show, like, I was saying it's about like coming home and like awakening the divine feminine and reconnecting to our nature, which is all true. But again, it's really this piece about sexual slavery, like returning to our nature and connecting to that primal life force energy that is blocked and repressed because of the ways that we enslave ourselves, the ways our culture enslaves us through sex and all the nuance and all the different ways that we're affected by our ideas about sex. And I realized that even though I had this realization, I think months ago, I might have talked about it, like where I knew that my work was about like liberation of everything, like limiting thoughts and ancestral patterns and emotions. But when I hit upon the sex, I realized that is precisely what it is. Like it felt like hitting the target, like, oh, that's totally what I'm about. But then I kind of didn't really, I became clear yesterday that there's a part of me that's still afraid to really own that, and even like believe that I can do that. And because it's so intimate to like my own personal process. And what I realized is this whole show is and the creation of it is about and a way for me to liberate myself even further from the ways that I'm still enslaved by sex. And this morning, and during a meditation, I was at an interesting where I felt this numbness on the right side of my body, and it took me back to when I was 26, and I had my gallbladder punctured by accident by doctors, and afterwards I remember having this odd reaction where I started to do drugs again. Like I was clean, and I had hepatitis C, so I was like, and I was about to start treatment, so I was, knowing that it was wise to take care of myself. And then when that happened, I just kind of was like, fuck it. Like I have no control. So if someone else is going to fuck up my body, like at least I should be the one to do it and enjoy it. So I started getting high, and yeah, it was silly, but interesting, because then I was like looking at that and just the fear and the sadness around feeling like, even if I take care of myself, like the world can invade me, or it's out of my control and it's not safe. And then I felt this blockage on the left side of my body, and it took me back to when I was 16 and the first time I had sex. And it was like a mirror. It was like at that time I chose to let someone invade my body. So in that sense, it's not an invasion because I kind of invited them in, but it felt like an invasion. It was like a betrayal of myself. And that took me back to all these past lives where I had chosen to use the offering of my sex or my body as a way to like have power, or at a time when women did not have many opportunities to express their power, so using their sexuality was one of them. But the problem is that it's self-destructive, because like in my case, there might have been some part of me, I mean, I wasn't doing this consciously to feel powerful, but I think there was some part of me that was feeling insecure or helpless or unwanted, and so I was using my sexuality, the magnetism of my sexuality, to kind of have this experience with someone. But then of course it's a betrayal in a way, because it's not really what I wanted, and then I carry that in my body, I just been carrying the sadness of that self-betrayal. So it's like having this doctor invade my body in a way that I couldn't control. It was like a mirror or an echo of the way that I chose to let someone invade my body. And in a way, almost that was out of my control too, because it was based on these like old, really old patterns that live within me. And it's not just me. It's all of us. It's a collective. And so, yeah, I'm going to look deeper into that.